Christine Weston Chandler, what may possibly be the world's most well-documented human, has entered a strange new chapter. Let's pick up where we left off. So we all remember this court scene. Yeah, it was real dramatic. Oh, they needed their stuff. They need to go back. They wouldn't feel safe in jail without it. Yeah, it was all funny, very memeable. But the specifics of this case are related to this charge that I'm not allowed to repeat yet in the video because they only watched the first 3 or so minutes. But it was about this charge related to an elderly woman, the mother of Christine by the name of Barb. Other charges are also pending as of now. Christine is in jail, not prison, and that is one of the many misnomers about this case. You see, the term is often mixed up, but jail and prison are entirely different and deserve to be called different things in this conversation. If Christine is convicted of a felony, they'll head off to prison. Think about it like this. If you can't make bail, are awaiting trial, or only need to remain locked up for a year, then you go to jail. A year or more usually means you're serving your punishment. You'd go to prison. Prison is generally considered a much more serious affair, and it's not a place that you want to be. Not that jail is any better, but generally you're not going to be there as long as prison. Now, last time I talked about this, there was a very powerful and interesting side character who was a meme in of themselves. This is a woman by the name of Isabella Loretta Yank, who, according to the most recent information available, is suspended from her school. Thank the Lord. At the time, many believed she encouraged incest due to it being a presumed desire of hers. But the reality now is that the dust has settled and everything is much hazier. Whether or not such a relationship is attractive to Isabella remains unknown. Isabella didn't encourage relations as far as we know, but didn't discourage it either. Now, Isabella has her own story going on. The discussion of a chess club and Isabella's alleged psychopathic behavior, and all of those things remain believed and remain to be as true as far as the internet is concerned. As for the specifics of Isabella at this time, we can assume she's done with this behavior for now. Yet, having covered drama for so many years, I can tell you that people like her rarely stay gone forever. They always find a reason to get back involved into this stuff, or some concerned citizen on Kiwi farms will be sure to let us know what they find. Thanks for the work, guys. I wouldn't have a job without you. Most people won't admit that, but they do. But we're here for Christine, right? We're here for that. And more specifically, I think people want to know what's happened with the courts since then. After those events, Newsweek covered the story in which the defense explained to the journalist that mental instability of their client was a big determining factor, mentioning their disability status, which we can now see that some time has passed is becoming the basis of an argument for the attorney in defense of Christine. There are motions of continuance. Basically, the attorney provides a reason they need more time in this case. Mental health evals for the client, generally stuff that's boring that people haven't really been concerned about when talking about this. Over this time, Chris Chan is in custody. It's this time in jail that much of the information coming out now we hear about via letters from Christine, of which don't send them letters. Please don't do that. And there are many of these letters that have gotten out to the public, and they are quite infamous, and I'll get into them in a little bit. But later down the line, the defense locks the courtroom down from outsiders because, well, I mean, there's all these memes arriving from these things, and outsiders to local denizens want to watch the trial, as this is pretty high profile in terms of internet people. Keeping up with the Joneses of this case and cutting down on the antics seems to be what the defense and the prosecution are trying to squash in order to make sure that this thing doesn't turn into a complete spectacle. But this is now leaving a little more of everybody in the dark, right? To keep everything short and simple, what's happened? Christine was transferred locations multiple times. One such event of note is a hospital. This is Western State Hospital, formerly Western State Lunatic Asylum. With a name like that, you just can't make it up. The comedy writes itself, and it's also a little dark. But this is a hospital that specializes in providing care for the mentally unwell individuals and those dealing with extreme substance abuse. Let me clarify, because this is one of those things that people just seem to not understand because they're not involved in the world enough. But asylums, like they existed in the American Horror Story, don't exist anymore. And this does not operate like one of those places. The people who are here usually on court orders and end up here after due process instead of going to prison. If they can't consent, they get a representative from the courts or a representative provided to them by either family or somebody else. Now, let me just say, I'm in New York, not Virginia, but adults who are incapable of consenting don't go here. They usually end up in residential care. They don't end up in these kind of places. Residential care facilities are basically homes with 24/7 on-site staff and community outreach. Many of the people in these facilities are getting up there in age as well, so they do remember the days when they lived in asylums despite being very much, disabled. But those are stories to share for another time. I'm just clarifying so that people are familiar with this system. Now, I should mention there is an incident that happened at this hospital. It is a pin me down incident, as clarified by Christine. You see, according to Christine, the hospital violated her rights. Christine was attempting to exorcise a demon from another patient in the facility, to which the staff assumedly tackled Christine for the unconsensual exorcism and tackled Christine to the floor, or at least that's what we're able to make out from the letters. Which overall, an event like this brings up CWC's competence to stand trial, which is why something is happening, right? This is moving to a grand jury. Now, that sounds very, very over the top and very serious, as if the crime or trial got more serious, but basically a jury of peers determine whether or not someone is fit to stand trial. That's all a grand jury is, and generally it's bigger than a regular jury. Depending on the results of the grand jury, it could go and bring Christine up on felony charges, or maybe get Christine help. It's not that the wheels are spinning hard on the court. It's actually kind of amazing how fast a lot of this is moving. This is a quite complicated case for these people, considering how high profile it is and how small of a town it is. These are steps that both sides need to hit a conclusion. They don't want to screw up and Christine is out on technicality or something like that. But looking at how this is moving, I would say I would hope these individuals, Barb and Christine, would get the help that they need. And I understand many people want to see the book thrown at Christine. But that's not how these things work, and we do need to at least try and believe in the justice system, even if we like the idea of the book throwing happening. There are a number of ways this could go, and yeah, a book throwing is one of them, but I don't think it will be that, for one particular reason. Christine is Jesus. Now, before we dive into this divine discussion, fund me on Patreon. I'm considered a possibility of going corporate, mainly because I can't sustain myself off of the money you guys give me on Patreon. You guys give a lot, and it's where I make all my money now, so thank you for that. But I'm not saying I'm quitting. I'm just saying that I need to go into the workforce or the loans will break my kneecaps. Anyway, this has been a growing, festering, incredibly dangerous delusion of Chris Chan, right? Basically, they believe themselves to be Jesus or some form of divine being. Speaking about a dimensional merge, which again is another thing that has become a meme, but it is also a very, very strong, profound delusion. Christine claims to be a future seer, saying things like, quote, "I am Jesus. And I know from not only personal experiences, but I am one with everything in the prime timeline here. And I have foreseen and foreknown the possibilities, likelihoods, details, and repeated histories and fulfilled prophecies. Babylon and Revelations, guess what? Russia is the modern day Babylon, and damn are the toxic and evil ones in that cesspool of demons and devils of lost country going to fall and burn. Okay, so that made no sense, but if you're curious about what that's talking about, Christine is basically saying that they predicted the war in Ukraine. I don't think that this is a really hard one to grasp, but Christianity is, of course, a big focus of Christine's younger years. So it's not surprising that there's a lot of direct parallels being made in their mind. And there's also some New Age woo, as this stuff has gotten incredibly popular amongst the communities that Christine considers themselves a part of. The Sonichu has also taken up a religious connotation, which is either by the internet's doing or Christine's own doing, or a little bit of both. And they often sign things like Mrs. Jesus Christ Chan Sonichu. Now I'm gonna read to you a signature that was left, and it's very, very long, but this is a signature that was left. Mrs. Jesus Christine Weston Chandler Sonichu, the goddess Blueheart of the Commodore consoles in the nation of CWCville and Old Kama. Creator of Sonichu and Rosechu species of Pokemon, the one avatar, thy Lord, Messiah, Savior, and God of all, end quote. Stuff like soul bonding being the path of Barb's Chris Chan mom becoming a different being, the Barb body becoming the Rosechu form or whatever, while also describing Barb as a zombie in the same breath, wishing for death, but also wishing for a rebirth into a new form as a pink Sonichu, basically. I'll let you make the call on how you should feel about that. There's a lot of resentment between child and parent, mainly over the guilt of being caught rather than the act itself. Christine seems to have either believed that these acts of what they would call love are some religious ritual, or either that or it depends on the day, really. These paragraphs are also like frying my brain, but another paragraph that really shows where Christine is at is this. Quote, I have long unconsciously foreknown of Bella's, Null's, and Sockness's intentions and plans. From my own innate body and brain's innate and developmental psychic power and abilities, parentheses, my body abilities are still being upgraded and strengthened godly despite the restrictions of 1-2-1-8 Earth, and I shall be maximized to full power and tangible ability upon and after the completion of the collective shift and my second coming. You've foreknown this as well, Helena. I have always innately connected with all my past collective memories and insights from the Book of Immortal Life, from within the cosmos, the Akashic records, the universal core of a long string of numbers, and it's both 1-2, 1-8, and C197's halves, and so on. I have not been made fully aware until recent years in intervals. All right, let me break that entire word salad down for everyone to understand. Bella is Isabella Yank. Null is the owner of Kiwi Farms. Sockness is Jacob Sockness. I didn't know who this was, but they're included on the wiki, so I need to show you their wiki intro, because it is something else. Quote, Jacob Sockness is an amateur sorcerer and conspiracy theorist from San Francisco, California, who attempted to manipulate Chris into a relationship, notably by exploiting his fantasy world and tricking Chris into believing his imaginary friend approved of the idea. Prior to Sockness's interactions, the idea guys had brainwashed Chris into identifying as bisexual, which enabled Sockness to try and become Chris's first, parentheses, real-world male sweetheart, which ultimately failed, quote unquote. This world that Christine has constructed is very complicated. There are Judas-like villains who portrayed the godly light of Sonichu, this being those individuals mentioned. Any of the numbers or self-prescribed worlds in a assumed multiverse. A concept in which Christine believes is about to occur is the dimensional merge, where these fictional universes, the one where Sonichu exists, and basically the ones developed by Christine and our universe will fuse together in one. And then with this event, Christine would be the bridge ascending to godhood and changing the world forever, assumedly for the better. You know, rapture happens, the apocalyptic events, the horns blow, we all get brought up to Sonichu heaven and brought back down on a new world where God Emperor of mankind, Christine Weston Chandler, rules with a powerful, beautiful iron fist made of whatever the Sonichu medallion's made out of. The Akashic records are kind of a weird one though. As I covered a bit of the rise of Western occultism in an other video, this is a religious text from another occult religion. It's called Theosophy from the 1900s. Instead of having Egyptian roots like the Hermetic order, it was more Indian Hindu, helping from the that kind of basis of thought and belief, and obviously pulling in from more neo-pagan and new age groups, and these groups tend to take ideas from each other a lot. A little bit of a hot take about all that though, man, did we really commodify Hinduism and yogi type beliefs. I just love it when we make religion and cultural intricacies into kitsch set dressing for white women who smell bad. Basically, I have no idea why this religious text of all the religious texts is mentioned. Maybe it's the complicated cosmology being adopted to Christine's own religion. There's stuff like talks of astral planes and multiple realities, and these are, all belief systems in and of themselves, but Christine might have been exposed to the Akashic records as an example of those things. Basically, they also believe in like multiple forms of a body in oneself, but this is all just a hunch. Christine could have learned all of this stuff from media or trolls or both. Anyway, the specifics of all of these notes and letters shared are completely non-important and really just further show off the mental disintegration of the real-life Truman Show that is Christine. Right now, Christine is sitting in a jail as the internet awaits some closure on this story, but for many Christorians, the story ends when Christine dies, and who knows when that's gonna be, and I don't know why, but I feel like it could be sooner rather than later. The connection to the internet is extremely toxic for Christine, and I'm pretty sure we're all aware of that. So unless Christine stops existing online, which they won't, this cycle will only continue. Now, there's also something surrounding this debate, and you might have noticed how I've handled it. This is all regarding Christine's gender. Some of you commented on my last video how I respected Ezra Miller's pronouns when they are a vile human being, which deserves no respect, which I agree, they are a vile person and they deserve what's coming to them. I think you can do whatever you want and label however you feel, and even when it comes to the evil people in this world, I can't choose for you. But I would very much assume, at least for most of us, that it's different when it comes to the people we care about, that we want to respect them, make them feel comfortable, and all of that. And, I don't know Christine. Christine began the transgender lifestyle to try and get women, or at least that's the narrative that's been explained. But Christine's maintained this status as being transgender ever since then, and it's clear from my view that they seem to have transcended that belief and referring to themselves as a goddess, maintaining this in court and more, much more than what you'd expect for someone faking it to try and get the attention of women. Now, this is all predicated on my belief that Christine's disability can have them acting out of character or inappropriate, making impulsive decisions. While autism is a spectrum, and at a certain point we have to start having difficult conversations, we're at a point with Christine where we need to start talking about a person's ability to make decisions and other big stuff. I think people treat it as if this disorder hasn't played a role in everything up until this moment, but it is a huge determining factor in why these things happen in the first place. Like I mentioned, I've done work in this field and I've spoken at length about Chris Chan with my mother, who's worked in the social services and social work field for about 30 years. It certainly makes it difficult, and depending on who you ask, the ability to pass is a determining factor in this conversation. I'm not saying that matters for me, it doesn't matter for me. I am just going to say that Christine is quite a homely individual. The gist of this is that I'm saying that Christine is quite ugly. Quite frankly though, they can identify however they want. I don't care, right? But I also see no reason to test them on it. It's not really the important conversation to have. I simply use they because I think it's a middle ground for this conversation. Somewhere someone will be annoyed with that, but I think a gender neutral pronoun is the most middle of the road way to handle this for everybody involved to feel as comfortable as possible talking about something difficult. But that's just how I'm handling it. Now, I will say I've looked at the sides of this argument and I'll address each side of the argument individually. So first, let's address the PC crowd, usually the LGBTQ, that have said don't label Christine as trans because it portrays trans people as bad. And, you know, I understand the need to protect people, as if Christine is, by their very existence, making it more difficult to be trans. I don't agree with that, by the way, but this also has people thinking that Christine is deeply ingrained in the cultural zeitgeist of the world. And there is a possibility that a hate crime could be committed in Christine's name, but no one really has any idea who Christine is. But okay, socially, Christine is going to make trans people look bad online. I could see that. That's possible, but really most people that are looking to put transgender individuals down will just come up with excuses anyway. We need to acknowledge the reality is that people of any race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic class can be monsters capable of evil. It has nothing to do with who we are as individuals and everything to do with what we are, humans. By Jove, Diesel did it. He somehow made a video about Chris Chan, a conversation about the greater concepts of human nature. Now, I don't think this next crowd cares very much, but the anti-woke crowd have been committed to the idea of this blue-haired person replying when talking about like a mass murderer, right? Where it's like he committed a mass murder, and then the blue-haired person will reply, "You mean she committed a mass murder? Ah, yes, she committed a mass murder." Because people do this on Twitter because they have nothing better to do. The crux of this side of the argument says that the acts are so despicable that they shouldn't be respected actively, and that people checking them on this are soft SJWs who can't handle the fact that I speak truth to power. No, Kavos, you make drama videos. We could both die tomorrow and the world would keep spinning. If all the garbage men disappeared tomorrow, we'd have a problem. People like it when the opinions are strong though and spicy. I agree. And I agree with Kavos on a lot of things. He's just one I'm pointing out this time. Here, I'll point out another one. I agree with you, Kavos. I'm Alex is a cunt. I knew him personally for years. I agree. The thing is, when people are doing this or misgendering as an insult, calling Chris Chan a he is a way to dig into them. I mean, me personally, my ethics try to keep shit as classy as they can be. I think a good counter to this is that OJ doesn't stop being black when he, quote unquote, didn't kill someone. Murderers who are gay don't ungay when they're caught. Why should someone untrans? Do trans people commit crimes? I mean, this goes for both sides of the argument, do they? I mean, yeah, some of them even roleplay the idea of being a criminal at protest. But, you know, seriously, jokes aside, there are trans people that commit crimes. Maybe if we live in a society, we can all agree that committing crimes is generally a net negative, regardless of how ACAB we feel about the world. And, you know, with that being said, you don't need to embellish the Chris Chan story at all to make them look bad. I mean, why embellish it or include extra insults when there's so much there already? I mean, I'm not gonna stop you. This side obviously doesn't care. I just think the reasoning is very weak. I'd much rather hear the I don't believe they are trans argument / the I don't care with all the baggage that an answer like that could entail for other individuals, right? I just don't like this idea of some like weird stick up the butt incestuous lol cow moralist argument as if, you know, this is, it's not gonna un-incest the situation, you know? And I'm gonna be a bit of a fence sitter here, but you know, the Twitter replies and all that, it's kind of the internet equivalent of a stranger coming up to someone and chastising them for like breaking wind in like Arby's or something. Like, we all smell the fart, we all aren't happy about it, but like you just escalated the situation where we all have to acknowledge it. I mean, yeah, I understand it's pretty shitty when people act like this, but frankly, they were probably gonna be shitty regardless of whether or not it happened, and you mentioning their wind breaking is probably going to convince them that they should do it again. Obviously, it's different with people you know, of course. I'd say don't go around in your real life being a dick to the people you care about, but I just don't think you're gonna convince anyone that they're wrong based off of a tweet you made. I'll respect even bad people's pronouns, right? Not because they're deserving of respect, my respect, which is mine to give, or not because my trans friends need validation by way of criminal representation, but as an example to everyone that regardless of who you are, you can be a piece of shit, which is kind of beautiful at the end of the day when you think about it, that underneath all of our differences, we're all just pieces of shit. Anyway, if any breadtuber or anti-SJW channel has some fucking problem with this, I don't know, go ask somebody else for a debate, because I don't have the energy, and I will not look at the comments for this video because you will all probably have something very negative to say, and I'm too old for it. What a beautiful thing to say. Respect someone not because you care, respect because you think everyone's terrible. All right, I'm gonna go paint this guy.